Good afternoon. I would like to begin by thanking the Mizuho India-Japan Studies Center at the Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore, for inviting me here to share my thoughts on the India-Japan collaboration and partnership. My congratulations on the foundation day of the Center of Excellence. I believe it's the 6th foundation year of the center, and I wish them great success in the years to come. Distinguished guests, members of the faculty, ladies and gentlemen, to begin with, I defied a simple aspect of Japanese culture today as we start, which is I reached 40 minutes early. Now, in their system, when we invite our Japanese partners home for lunch or dinner after a meeting or a board meeting, if the time for dinner is set at 6:45 p.m. and for any reason they arrive before 6:40, they always arrive 5 minutes early, so they're never late. And they're never on time 5 minutes early. But if they come at 6:20, 6:30, I find that they're still waiting in the car outside the gate. And then the security calls me and says, "Madam, guests have come." I am now always ready 1 hour before. So if it's 6:45, I am ready at 5:45. Then I'm told the guests have arrived. And I run out, and then one of them shared with me that it's, not very polite for us to have come that early. So they sit in the car outside till 5 minutes before. I defied that rule, though I'm here to talk about how do we integrate with their work and social culture to be able to collaborate larger, greater, better, and longer. So I reached here at about 2:20, I think, because there was no traffic. And I marched right in. So that was the Indian in me that happened. Blossoms of the breeze, India and Japan embrace cultural heartbeats. Trade winds from the east, India and Japan unite, economic feast. India and Japan as societies have a lot in common and some synergistic differences. We are both Eastern, spiritually vital cultures. We have both progressed over the past 7 decades, one recovering from colonialism, the other from the devastation of World War II. At the same time, we have differences that are complementary to each other. India is a young country with a demographic dividend to reap, while Japan's society is mature, wise, stable, and structured. India's growing strength in new age technologies complements Japan's leadership in automotive electronics. Indian polity is boisterous and diverse, complementing Japan's structured serenity. No wonder an India-Japan partnership promises cultural heartbeats and an economic feast. Over the next 2 decades, the Japan-India economic partnership will expand to new sectors while further strengthening in the domains of automobiles, electronics, and infrastructure. IT services, business process outsourcing to India from Japanese companies will be a high-growth area. Japanese investment in India's booming startup sector, we will see that too. JETRO, in fact, is doing a lot of work and hard effort and in continuous talks with me to take advice on how do we convert and have and enable Japanese startups to invest in Bangalore. I focused on a Japan-India partnership that focuses on becoming the principal axis as the world redraws the manufacturing supply chain. The geographic location of India and Japan, both stable democracies with mature capital markets and a functioning judicial system, allows the partnership to become the world's leading supplier of manufactured goods. There is great synergy between a highly industrialized country with immense strengths in mature technologies and a country ready to reap a demographic dividend and a growing force in tomorrow's technologies. Having said this, we all know today that this is the backdrop of a very conducive and enabling environment for more partnerships between India and Japan. However, to actually catalyze this and to convert business and get larger volume of trade and movement between India and Japan, there are some aspects of practical work and social culture of Japan that it's very, very important for us to know, for us to understand, and for us to genuinely practice when we start any engagement with Japan or with the Japanese. And this today I will share with you not devastating technical insights or statistical conclusions, because you can get that from the internet and from your academics. But what I would like to quickly share with you are a lot of practical experiences over 27 long years that my late husband, Mr. Vikram Kirloskar, led and drove up very successfully. 1. In the Japanese work culture, you will find that they always undercommit but over-deliver. We tend to commit. It's not over or under, but we tend to make very strong time-bound commitments. And it's not that the intention is to mislead, but we do it because we work with a certain exuberance and entrepreneurial energy. So in our excitement, in our sense of aggression, which is very natural and typical to our character, and frankly, we've come this far because of that, and we've been able to fight all sorts of onslaughts and invasions. We've reached the stage of success. We're a powerful democracy, a strong economy, because of that entrepreneurial spirit and aggression. But when you deal with the Japanese and you commit something, you have to ensure that you keep to the commitment, because right from the start, if you don't, it creates a sense of a kind of trust deficit. They know it's not deliberate, but there is discomfort. Second, our style is very intuitive and it's very entrepreneurial. As I said, it's also the reason why we are where we are. But in dealing with the Japanese, and this was very true when I was setting up, I've set up a lot of joint ventures with them independent of Vikram, one of course being the Sakra World Hospital. And I found that they take a lot of time to take a decision. So I found myself with I'm generally very aggressive and impatient by nature as well. So I found that I was getting very impatient. And that sometimes that tends to disrupt the equation. And when that happens, they recoil. So then the whole process becomes very slow. So I realized at the end of it, however, you always feel they're slow. And when you speak to people who've done work with Japan, they will tell you that, oh, you have to be very patient. They're very, very slow. They take ages to get back, but they're not sleeping over it. What they're doing is very meticulous, studying every aspect of the proposal, drawing up a list of the risks, then drawing up risk mitigation plans with alternatives, scenario A, B, C. So when they get into so much detail and plan so meticulously, when it comes to execution, we found that we were able to execute very fast. And there was a lower error margin. So when you decide in a bit of a hurry and you've not taken every factor into account and you're trying to meet a very strong deadline for yourself, to prove to yourself, you find that the error margin in execution gets delayed. So really, if you look at the times taken from the inception of the program and the plan to final execution, it was actually before time. And we were even under cost in the project by 10%. So that is one of the very important work culture differences that we have to bear in mind. We have to be patient. We have to allow them to go through their system and reach their conclusions in their own time. Because remember, when you're partnering them, when you start execution on the project, you will find that it's faster with a lower error margin. I also found one very interesting, they always work as a team. Always. They're always very well connected. I always tell Mr. Mohapatra that they're so well connected with each other. If I'm giving a talk today, it will be all over in the Japanese community in which I interact. I'll get calls. They'll refer to my talk when I'm visiting them next. They're very connected. They like to work as a team. They like to believe that they should stay connected, communicate with each other, learn from each other. So generally, decisions are always taken with consensus. And they have to gain and gather consensus. It's not that it's in a discussion and they need everyone to agree. No, they have to build, they believe in building consensus. So it's across levels, it's across departments, it's across divisions of the company. They consult. Even in owner-driven companies, let me tell you, Japan has several large companies that are still very, very family-owned and family-run. It's not that they're, if you look at Japanese multinationals and the large companies or the SMEs, it's not as if they're highly professionalized in the Western context. They're still very family run. And they actually believe in family businesses a lot. Even in those setups and those institutions, large or small, they believe that you have to build consensus. So owner-driven or family-run doesn't mean that if the family or a member of the family takes a decision, that it's cut across others' opinions. It isn't. And they build consensus. So that also takes time. That is another reason why they arrive at a conclusion late. But the advantage is when you arrive at a conclusion where everyone's bought into it, bought into your decision, the chances of it being implemented easily and with great success. So that's yet another aspect of their work culture, which I remember and I experienced. And I think there was a great learning from all these because I could practice this in my personal life as well. And that was also very productive for me. They're very, very quality conscious in every aspect. They get into the minutest detail to ensure that the quality is never compromised. And if you appear to be, you may not be, but sometimes in our personality, in our typical social and work culture, we can come through as people who are sometimes willing to compromise quality a little bit for cost, or compromise on the quality a little bit for time schedule. That sort of feeling, if they get, again, they're very uncomfortable. And I find one thing with the Japanese, Indians are very, very more global. The individual Indian is used to multiple cultures. He's used to diversity. Whereas theirs is a more insular culture. It's more contained as a culture and as a country. So I find that their ability to understand diversity in terms of reactions and responses and work cultures and social cultures when they are engaging with countries like India, their ability to do so is a little weak, if I may say so. So perhaps we might have to, we're so good at modifying to any situation, isn't it? So maybe the adjustment has to come a little more from us, rather than expect them to adjust and then get very frustrated, very impatient and very irritated and start tearing our hair apart. Because I used to be in a Sakra meeting with my Japanese partners, and I was very excited, and our doctors are yelling and screaming, and our nurses are shrieking, and everybody's very excited, as the meeting reaches a crescendo, a lot of talk, and they're like sort of a little, sort of very puzzled. And then I'm wondering, have they understood? So I kept stopping and saying, do you understand what I'm saying? Because they're blank. And that's not because they haven't understood, it's just that they don't want to react to anything unless they've gone back, thought it through, and then taken a decision whether should they be excited about it. Because if excitement is shown, then it means they've accepted it, but they may not accept it because it's not a proposal that's been vetted and researched well enough. So it's not blank, they're absorbing everything, they're listening to everything probably better, because like my husband said, you're talking so much that you've not listened, you've not heard anything. Whereas they have listened, they have heard, and they have absorbed. So, these are very minor differences, and you won't find them so much in textbooks or in academics or research. When you actually work with them, you realize that you need to be open-minded to see the signals, to understand the nuances of their work culture, which emerges from their social culture and their history. And then you learn from it, and you need to make that extra move towards understanding them better, because you want to catalyze the relationship, you want to build on it, you want more business, you want larger volumes of exchange with the Japanese. To do that, you need to understand them, their work culture, the way they think, and the way they react. You need to read the room when they're around you. These are very important factors. To conclude, I would like to say there are 4 guiding principles which you must simply bear in mind when you work or interact or deal with the Japanese. First, build trust. Trust is very important. The trust deficit will not move your proposal to the next step. It will not enable your collaboration to get the volumes and the speed with which you want it to work. Second is respect. Institutionalize respect. It's actually institutionalized. It's not a one-off between members of the top management or between members of 2 junior levels that are interacting with each other. It is the culture and the way with which they present themselves to a partner, always with a lot of respect. Third, very important, humility. Am I right, to the Deputy Honorary Consul? Humility is extremely important. Any measure or reflection of even a little bit of ego and arrogance will completely spoil the relationship before it even starts. They will be uncomfortable, that will lead to disrespect, that will lead to a trust deficit, and you find you're not able to either move on, or having entered into a partnership, it will not grow. It won't be a partnership that will grow, prosper, and stand the test of time. You'll find that it sort of slows down the whole process. Humility is very important. They believe if a nail sticks out, hammer it in. Am I right? So humility is the third value and the guiding principle. Last, of course, is patience. And without patience, it's very hard to work with the Japanese. So with these few words, where I thought, you all know that there's an enabling environment. You all know that the geopolitics of both India and Japan today are enabling and almost forcing the 2 countries to look at each other very positively. And our diplomacy, in fact, our embassies have become centers of commerce. They're no longer just diplomatic centers of polite exchange of government policy. They're actually centers of commerce, where the embassy in Japan, the Indian embassy, has actually been asked to involve in the process of speedening economic exchange. And in doing so, there's going to be a very enabling environment. I was so happy to see that it's not that I'm asking us that we should make all the moves, but it was so nice at G20 to see Kishida-san's wife, the First Lady of Japan, wearing a beautiful traditional sari, draped in a very traditional form, and eating and enjoying Indian vegetarian food across all the time and hours that they stayed in India. That is how they show respect. And if we can reciprocate with trust, respect, humility, and a little bit of patience, there is no end to the India-Japan collaboration. There is no limit to the exchange between India and Japan, the volume of exchange, the speed of exchange, and the success of exchange. Thank you very much. Domo arigato gozaimasu.